Hey everybody, it's Kara with Sif by Kara, and I'm finally putting together a video tutorial of how I ganache my cakes using acrylic rounds and the upside down technique. So I'm excited to show you, and I hope that you will learn a lot and find this easy and use this. I choose to use ganache under my fondant because, well, it just makes it easier. It just is stabler. It's smoother. I don't have to deal with my buttercream softening as I'm working my fondant to get sharp edges or to smooth out or to get air pockets out. So I like it a lot. I know some of you have, wondered about what it tastes like, or the customer doesn't like it or anything like that. I say if you're already good at buttercream under fondant, then do what you do. If you're having problems like I was, then maybe you want to look into ganache under your fondant covered cakes. I choose to do it this way. I don't offer buttercream under my fondant. If you don't like ganache, then there are other bakers in town that you can choose from that are great with buttercream under fondant. But if you want a cake from me and you want it to look like that, then I have to use the techniques and the materials and the tools and everything that I need to make it look like that. So those are my reasonings. Again, not everybody likes ganache, not everybody prefers ganache. But if you're like me, then you might find this tutorial very exciting and kind of stress-free, and you'll enjoy it a lot. I really believe so. So we're going to get started.
Okay, so to get started, I like to use a prep board. This is just a cutting board. I got it from Tap Plastics. This is a 12 by 12. It's just a nice, flat, strong surface. And I like to put it on my turntable. I have a non-skid pad here, and then I place my prep board. You can use any prep board that you have, but I will say the stronger, the sturdier, the flatter, level surface would be best. Right in the middle of that, I have a round, just enough to fit under my acrylic circle so that it doesn't slide around. You can choose to put some ganache there if you'd like. I just don't see the purpose, but do what works for you. This is an acrylic round. This is a size 6.5. I use this size when I'm covering 6-inch round cakes. So you will need 2 of them. You can purchase these also at Tap Plastics. However, if you get the 1/2-inch increment sizes, I've never actually purchased 1/2-inch sizes from Tap Plastics, so I'm not sure how to tell you how to do that. But I have a link and an email information to a lady and her husband that makes these, and she's fabulous, and I highly encourage you to buy them from her. Nothing like supporting small businesses. So I get the 1/2-inch size larger because when I place my 6-inch cake in the middle of my acrylics, it will leave a 1/4 of an inch spacing around my cakes. So let's get started. Again, your non-skid, and you're going to place your acrylic right on top. On top of that, you need a parchment round, and this is a 6-inch parchment round that is going to fit onto right in the middle of my acrylic. So I do this using the parchment paper because when you place your ganache, later when you want to remove your acrylics, you want to be able to get this acrylic off the chocolate. And the easiest way to do that is to have this parchment, and it'll just easily pop off. If you forget to put your parchment, you're running the risk of not being able to get your acrylic off the top of your cake smoothly. It might rip the chocolate. You might be upset. So please don't forget your parchment, and make sure you cut it to size and that it does not overhang. So you want it, I can't see backwards, sorry. So you want it in the center like that. So there's no overhang along the sides. Okay, so I'm going to place that here in the center. Now, what I'm going to do is, this is the upside down method. So actually, I'm preparing the top of my cake right now. So what you want is your ganache, and you can see that. It's sort of a peanut butter consistency right now. This is pretty perfect right now. So don't be shy. You really want to pour a lot of ganache onto your acrylic and your parchment paper here. So here's the tricky part. Again, if this was buttercream, same method is involved here. You want to put a lot of buttercream, you want to put a lot of ganache. Make sure that your parchment paper is centered onto your acrylic. And I'm going to be holding the paper down with one finger here as I push ganache over, not moving the parchment. I want the parchment to stay in the center. And I'm going to push all of that ganache over onto my prep board, covering the acrylic, covering the parchment paper. Okay, so don't put a lot of pressure or you'll just be moving that parchment paper and you'll be frustrated. So just lightly get it over there. Okay, so now you have quite a bit of ganache onto your acrylic board, and this is again prepping for the top of the cake because we are going to flip our cake over onto this and level it off. So I'm going to go get my already torted and filled and chilled 6-inch cake, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have already stacked and crumb coated this 6-inch round cake. I have already placed my cake on a cardboard round. Very important. So as you would any other cake, just stack your cake using your cardboard round and make sure that you chill it in your refrigerator for at least an hour. Make sure it's firm so you can handle it. See, I'm handling my cake. Woo, I'm handling my cake. Okay, so what I'm going to do is flip my cake over on top of my ganache. And I'm going to center it as best I can and press down. Now, I'm going to start smoothing up the ganache all the way around the side of my cake. And I'm going to take my bench scraper. This bench scraper is, I love this bench scraper. It's by Fat Girl Cakes. So go check her out and purchase one of these. She has them in 8 and 10 inches. They're absolutely amazing. I'm going to use my bench scraper and I'm going to scrape along the side of my acrylic so I can find it. You can see it up here. Now I can see that I'm not very centered, so I definitely need to get my cake centered. Don't get afraid to get your fingers in there. I am way far over and I need to push my cake. You can see it's lined up. I need 1/4 inch around. So I am going to hold lightly but firmly the acrylic on this side, and I'm going to move my cake over ever so slightly to get it lined up. Yep, and your hands will get pretty messy. And then I'm going to scrape again and just kind of get an idea of where we are. So on this side, I am too far, so I'm going to move it over ever so slightly. Now, to further, here's where you want to actually level and make sure your cake is level. Get you one of these levelers here, and you can see I'm already pretty leveled on that side. Give it a little push down, turn your cake. So we're good. We're actually already leveled. Now you want to do this while your ganache is still soft and you can push down on your cake. So now I'm going to put the top, or actually this is the bottom of the cake. I'm going to put the bottom acrylic on. You're going to put a little bit of ganache just in the center there and line up your top. Now before this middle ganache sets, I'm going to line up my two acrylics using 2 bench scrapers. So I have a second bench scraper here along with my other one. And how we're going to line these up is directly on one side, I'm going to make sure that my bench scraper is touching the bottom and the top. And then directly across from it, I'm going to do the same. And I'm going to look down and see that my cake is in the center. Let me get a picture of that. So you can kind of see that the cake is in the center of the acrylic. And you can see the spacing all around it. So now I'm going to turn my cake to the other side. Again, lining up one side to the other. Now, over here, you can see that. The bottom is touching, but the top is not. So directly across from it, I'm going to tap it in. And I'm seeing now that my cake is actually more on this side, so I have to move it over. So again, placing my fingers, finding where I need to move it, and ever so slightly, I'm going to, oh, that was too much. I'm going to move my cake over a little bit. Over sliding too much. Now I'm going to move my cake over. Lining up again. Checking all sides. Making sure that my cake is centered and I have about 1/4 inch of space. You can see the gap on both sides. Let's see. That's what you want. And you want to make sure that both top and bottom acrylics are lined up. Okay, I think we're lined up. So I'm just going to wash my hands and I'll be back to show you what to do next. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to seal this acrylic that's on top to the cake so that it doesn't move. Now that we've spent that time making sure that it's lined up perfectly with the bottom acrylic, we want to make sure that it stays in place. So you're going to take a little bit of ganache onto the bottom of the tip of your spatula. And what you're going to do is gently, I'm not putting any pressure onto my acrylic. I don't want to move it. You're just gently going to push the ganache up underneath the acrylic. So you can see that by doing that, I filled in the gap between the cardboard of the cake and the spacing. Again, I'm not putting any amount of pressure onto the acrylic. I'm only pushing ganache underneath that spacing. Filling in the gap, making sure that it is adhered and stays in place. We're just going around and checking, making sure you don't see any space. Here's what it looks like from the top view. As you can see, there is a space of ganache all the way around the cake. That's exactly what you want. You're good. We're lined up now. We've got the top and the bottom acrylics lined up in place, and we've got the top acrylic, which is really the bottom of the cake, adhered to the cake. So now we can go ahead and finish filling in the sides of our cake. You want to make sure you pile on the ganache. It's always easiest to take away than to keep adding on. So don't be scared of cake. Don't be stingy with the ganache or the buttercream. Load it on. Big gobs of it. And you want it loaded to the point where you cover up both the acrylics. You don't want to see any acrylics at this point. Filling in the cake. We are already almost done. That is how quick and easy this ganache technique method is. It's why I love it. So once I've got a lot more ganache than I need, and definitely before it starts to set up on you, you've got to work fast with ganache. It will start to set on you, and you don't want to start this process then go play on Facebook like I usually do. And you also want to make sure you're packing that ganache or that buttercream in. You don't want any air pockets. So now, with my bench scraper, I'm going to touch both the top and the bottom, keeping flat on my prep board, and I'm going to do a pass around my cake, scraping off the excess. You don't want to put too much pressure on your cake because you don't want to move your acrylics. Now I can see where I need to fill in or where I need to scrape down more, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to be able to see the bottom acrylic and the top acrylic, and you want to smooth in any holes or gaps in between the two acrylics. So I'm going to add more to areas. You can see there's like a line, that couple lines I got created here. That comes from having a rather dirty or unclean edge. So you make sure next time I scrape, I'm going to make sure this edge is completely clean. Maybe that was a hard bit of chocolate, perhaps. And it just scraped along, and we don't want that. We want smooth and pretty. So I'm going to clean off my bench scraper. By the way, this is a very messy process, ganache, but such a great result. So making sure I'm flat on my board, lining up with the bottom and the top, I'm going to scrape away. And revealing the two acrylics, top and bottom, and finding where I've got holes. So I've got one right there. So, like you would a buttercream cake, you feel and add. Making sure my scraper is completely clean, we'll go back. And you know you're flat on your prep board when your prep board becomes clean. Really getting a final smooth ganache look. And I think that is going to do it. I have made sure all the way around my cake I can see both the top the top and the bottom acrylics, and I have no holes or major gappage around my cake, so my cake is completely entombed in a cylinder of ganache. Okay, there you have it, guys. It's done for this stage. Now what we need to do is we need to let this ganache chill, set. You can either leave it on the counter for an hour or even overnight if you don't have any, perishable feeling going on in your cake. You can leave the cake out. I mean, it's so entombed in this chocolate that it's going to keep your cake fresh inside for a few days, really. So don't be afraid to leave it out on the counter. If you're kind of in a rush and you want to cover this cake, then go ahead and set it in the refrigerator so we can get these acrylics off. So I'm going to set this in the refrigerator and get my cake set up so that I can remove the top and the bottom acrylics from the cake. Okay, we'll see you back here in a minute. Okay, so my cake has been firmed up in the refrigerator, so see, it's not coming off in my hand, so it's actually really good now to go ahead and take off our acrylics, because I'm cheap and I'm not trying to give away acrylics to the customers. You'll probably never get them back, or it's just a cost that you don't need to keep spending every time you want to make a cake for someone. So Another reason why I love this technique. So I'm going to start by taking the top acrylic, which is actually the bottom of our cake. You can see that on here on the top, the only bit of ganache that we have to release from the acrylic is right here around the edge. So how we do that is you need a cup of hot water and a good sharp pointed knife, small. You'll let that knife heat up for a few moments. Wipe off the excess, and you're going to insert right underneath. You can see that. And I'm actually going to glide the knife and make sure that you can see that the knife is on top of the cake board, exactly what you want. You don't want to get that knife under the cake board because you don't want the cake board to come off your cake. So, I took a little bit long, so I have to reheat my knife. But basically what I'm going to do is taking my knife between, let's see if we can get that, between where the chocolate and the acrylic meet, right in that. Gliding my knife along. Carefully, not to rip. You run out of heat on your knife, then heat it back up. Again, inserting where I left off, right on top. And I'm actually applying a little bit of pressure upwards, and I'm going, oh, and there you have it, popped right off. And that's that. See? We can wash it and save it for another cake. Okay, so you can see a view from the bottom of the cake. You can see where the layer of ganache and the cardboard here. So I'm going to clean up my cardboard a little bit and remove that extra ganache. All right, yay! So now what we're going to do is we're going to release the chocolate that has built up between the prep board and the acrylic, and using your knife, you're going to heat it up again in your little cup of water, and you're going to run your knife between your acrylic and your prep board, and you want to get rid of any buildup. That might, there, now we can move our cake. We want to do that first before we flip our cake over so that it doesn't get stuck onto your prep board. Okay, so moving on to flipping our cake over, you get you another round non-skid and place it onto the center of your bottom of your cake. And I have a smaller prep board here. I think it's like an 8 by 8 inch. Now I'm going to lay that on top. Get it lined up. Now, we're going to flip. Don't be scared. I'm picking up my entire prep board here. And I'm putting my hand directly underneath the cake. And I'm placing my other hand on top. I am going to sandwich them together and make sure that they're tightly in place. And I'm going to flip. Don't be scared. Laying that back down. We can take that board off. And now I'm going to remove my non-skid. And now you can see my parchment paper here on top. So what we want to do, and there's a buildup of chocolate. And now what we're going to do is, again with your knife, heat it back up into your water, and we're going to now do the same thing that we did on the bottom of the cake and remove this top lid. When you place your knife underneath this lid, you want to do your best to keep your knife on top of this parchment round paper. So, we're finding you can see that. And again, we're going to glide our knife, applying pressure upwards. And it just popped right off. Well, that was just too easy. And there you have it. The second acrylic to be washed and reused. And now, you just remove, and look how clean the surface is already. There are some holes and some crackage going on here, and we are going to fill that in with, I like to call a wet ganache, and smooth this all pretty. Okay, so I've just taken some ganache. You can see it's on the wetter, sort of runnier side. And I'm going to use that to patch up and fill my top of my cake. So, using some of the wet ganache, I'm going to smooth over. Again, I don't want a thick layer. I don't want to add more. It's pretty thick already. And it's already level. So you don't want to add too much and then make your cake not level anymore. So I'm just going around. It's okay if the ganache runs over the side. That's totally fine. It's running over the side there. It's wet. We'll be able to pick that up, smooth that out with our bench scraper. Right now, I'm just going to cover the top with a very thin layer. I am a one-handed trick caker right now. So I'm trying to hold the camera so you can see. But there we go. So I have smooth. I don't even need to really put any in the center because, well, that was just already smooth. But I am going to go ahead and don't be afraid to push that wet ganache over to the side of the cake and get that all smooth and pretty. So give it a turn around. And now I'm going to take my bench scraper and I'm going to clean up where the wet ganache has come over on the side. Again, lightly. I don't want to damage the work that I put in. I'm just going to run. It'll also clean up that bottom edge, any possible damage that might have occurred when taking off the bottom acrylic. Got another go around here. There you go. So that is pretty darn exciting. I'm going to show you the top. So you can see here that there's a little bit of a lip. Now, you can feather that in. You do run the risk of pushing ganache on the side. But what I actually like to do is let it kind of go ahead and set up. You might can pop it in the refrigerator. And then you can take a knife and just cut it off. So, and I'll show you that process in just a few. And now this top edge here is hardened. And so now I'm going to show you how I take that off. So I've got my knife that's been sitting in the hot water. And let's see if you can see that. I'm just going to glide it along the top of the cake and trim it off. So just finding the edge, and I'm running my knife and trimming off that little bit of edge that built up. Just going around. Cutting it off. And you can see, you can also use your fingers. The heat from your hands can help kind of melt down any chocolate, but I've kept that very sharp and clean edge. Again, I'm using my fingers to just smooth out top. This is very important that you get your top of your cake nice and smooth and level, because when you go and lay your fondant, and I like to panel, and I'll show you that as well in a separate video. It just takes away most of the work for you, because it's already smooth and level. Top of the cake. And it's beautiful. And guess what? I'm done. To see that we're level. And we are level, we are done, we are ready to fondant. And look, I can put my hands all over it. It's not going anywhere. I can apply pressure. And it is solid inside. And I'm so excited about this, that I know that I already have a great foundation for cake. I know that I already have a great foundation on my cake, and Now the fun part is just waiting to be had. That's the fondant, the decorating, the display, the wow. I hope you enjoyed this technique. I love it. It may take a minute to get comfortable with the technique, but I promise you once you practice, you will love it. I said promise because I really believe you can. I do hope that you try it. Please let me know. Send me a message. Let me know if you like it, love it. If you have any questions, if I didn't explain something, I'll be happy to try to explain that to you over a message. So there you have it. Yay! Thanks for watching.